everybody, so again I'm doing another new series. Look at me doing all the cool new series for you guys. This is gonna kind of be a book review, but with a twist. Now, someone very famously said to me when I worked in a gaming store that you don't get any achievements for reading books. I still stand by the argument that you do. It's called an IQ. So, if you like video games and you find one of these awesome books, I always recommend giving them a go, but always take them with a pinch of salt at the same time. Why do I say that? Well, a lot of these books are either set before or after the game, or are kind of like an alternate universe of the game. And I want to explore that in giving you a bit of like timeline history, essentially. Well, at least in this episode. So today I'm going to be kind of doing a mini review of the first two books of the original series of Five Nights at Freddy's. Why am I not including the third one? Because honestly I haven't read it, because after what happened at the end of the second one I wasn't really sure I wanted to pick it up. So for anyone who doesn't know, Five Nights at Freddy's is an indie horror series with jump scares essentially, and mechanics that resource management is the best way to describe it. I actually really enjoyed them. They're really good, fun, just like a really silly game. I managed to 100% complete the first one, and yeah, really like them. They're a silly game to pass a couple of hours with when you're bored, which is, you know, what most games are, to be honest. Now there's lore in these games, as there is in all games, but the lore doesn't really present an actual timeline or story that you could probably, you know, write a book about. Or at least that's what I first thought until the first book, The Silver Eyes, came out. Now, from the lore that you can gather in-game by, you know, when you're not getting your face eaten off by zombie animatronics, or, you know, looking at cameras, you can find things in posters in the first game and the second game that lead you to have a general idea about the fact that there are 5 kids. They went missing. They died. That's the basis behind the whole thing. And because of that, it caused the Freddy restaurants to be shut down, which is true, essentially. But there's not much more than that. However, the first book, as I said, Silver Eyes, does a really good, solid attempt at creating a storyline that is ABC. Now, it's set after, essentially, the game. Very long time after the game. So, the game apparently happened about 15 years ago, roughly, if I remember correctly. And this group of kids, 6-7 kids, decide to break into the old Freddy's restaurant and explore. It takes place over about 3 different days. The first day they break in, nothing happens. Second day, they discuss what they're going to do. And third day, they break back in. And that's when things start going horribly wrong and people get very badly hurt. But anyway, it's a horror book. It is a good book, this one. I actually really enjoyed it. It does a very good job of creating a cohesive narrative out of something that had no start point and no real known end point during its game, which is, you know, really good to do. However, the follow-on book, The Twisted Ones, this is where it all kind of starts messing up a bit for me. This book was written more along the lines of the later games, including the Sister Location game. In fact, it includes the Sister Location. However, the way it links to the previous book is just out of the blue. I mean, the main character, Charlie, has gone to college. Great, good for her. You've managed to make something of your life, which has been hell up until this point. And yet, you're still having issues with animatronics that are hunting people down and kidnapping them or killing them and essentially wearing their skin. It comes out of the blue, out of nowhere, and again, this was written just before Sister Location, and since then in Sister Location that has happened. I am aware of this fact, but that's still really threw a curveball. Probably if I read this now after the release of Sister Location and the newer games, etc, it would make a lot more sense. but it was just such a jarring difference to the entire series. It doesn't even have any of the glibly thrown together things like pain and torment or anguish or whatever they want to call it that animates the animatronics in the newer games. There's none of that in the book. The previous main villain, Dave, the purple guy, comes back in the second one, but he died. Properly dead in the previous game. But now, through no idea at all how it happened, he is reanimated within his suit and has created new animatronics to go out and hunt down this tiny little disc that Charlie got when she escaped the previous book. Which, again, doesn't make an awful lot of sense considering there was no laboratory, no building requirements in the previous restaurant or anything like that. It's so different, and it doesn't really seem to actually follow the narrative of the previous game. I mean book. Jeez, gosh. I don't know, it just... When you read it, the difference is so jarring and so ridiculous that at the time, it even stopped me playing some of the newer games. I just watched lore videos on it to try and figure out what the hell was going on. Five Nights at Freddy's has such a vast knowledge base and lore and fan base, etc. I get what Scott Cawthon was trying to do by writing these books. Because he hadn't introduced these to the games yet and tried to introduce them through the books, it didn't really work. It was so awkwardly done. And especially from what I hear about the third book, where it comes to the fact that Charlie, who we've been following throughout all the previous series, is actually an animatronic. For God's sake, she has a boyfriend! How do you expect him not to know that she's an animatronic weirdo? I don't really get it. So, in short, if you like Five Nights at Freddy's, read the first book. Don't read the second one. Don't read the third one. The first one's really, really good. Second one's very weird. And... ugh. Don't really want to touch the third one. There's also the other anthology series of books, which are pretty good, but don't really seem to mesh into the main storyline and just seem to be random tack-on stories to the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. Not necessarily a bad thing, but this was all supposed to be in 2 restaurants. How did they make that many animatronics for 2 restaurants and not get found out? I mean, just all seems a bit weird to me.